Hi, welcome. My name is Lynette, and this is Africa's Junction. Today, we are taking you into the world, and we're going to be touching on a topic that deals with trade. The EU US trade deal that happened like 2 days ago. What does it mean for the EU? What does it mean for the US? What does it mean for Africa? So let's just get right into it. So, a couple days ago, like 2 days back, EU and the US signed a trade deal, and they agreed that for imports coming to the US from the EU, that there'll be a 15% baseline tariff on most of the goods being imported into the US. Yeah. So what are the guys on ground saying, or what are the people saying about this trade union? So the EU, most of the countries have mixed feelings because they're like, okay, some are relieved because um, Mr. Trump had been threatening them with like 200% pharmaceutical tariffs. Can you imagine? 50%. He was actually talking about 50%. Then a few months later, he came down to 30% tariff on all imports into the US from the EU. And, you know, that is crazy. To be honest, that I don't know how else I can put it in terms of trade, it can really kill industries in the EU. So, looking from that point of view, the 15% seems like a good bargain, like half of what he had said he would impose on the 1st of August. So on the 1st of August, His Excellency Trump had, told guys that, yeah, we'll have a lot of changes on the tariffs so that he can protect his economy. And this is under the banner of America First. And these are protectionist policies just to develop the manufacturing industries in the US. So he wants the US economy to grow, and the imports are not helping because the imports are cheaper. So when the prices go to the consumer, then the consumer will definitely buy the imports that are cheaper, maybe from China or even the EU. Yeah, but also there was relief because, if he imposed the 50% or 30% tariffs, that would mean that there'd be a trade war because, like, they were averting a trade war. The 15% deal looked good because it was averting a trade war between the EU and the US. For the US economy, what does that mean? That means it's good for the manufacturing sector and the industries in the US that manufacture goods that the EU manufactures. Why? Because they'll have an added advantage, and when their goods hit the market, then they will be sold. What does that mean for the consumer? For the US consumer, it may just mean higher prices for them because as much as the manufacturing industry in the US is um is producing goods and things like that, some of the parts they have to import them. And these imports will still be hit by those tariffs. And once they're hit by the tariffs, that means what? The prices go up. So it's probably what will happen, the manufacturer and the consumer will have to share that cost of the tariff. And yeah, and that is for the consumer. So short term, you might see a bit of inflation in the market, in the US markets, because once goods now start coming, the cost of the tariff will have to be shared between the manufacturer and the consumer because some of these goods are needed whether you like it or not. um Steel and aluminium was not part of the EU US trade deal. So the imposed taxation is still stands at 50% of 50% tariff. So it's not come down. Um yeah, and also we did the copper before. I don't know if I've done it on my YouTube, but yeah, There's also a 50% tariff on copper. All these are effective 1st of August. Huh? All these tariffs are effective 1st of August. And we saw it with the copper, how the futures, I mean, because of that prediction, the markets were going crazy. Yeah. So what does that look like for the EU countries? So some countries will be hard hit, like let's say Germany. Yeah? Germany, they're export oriented. The industry is export oriented, and they're well known for their exports on their cars, the Mercedes, the Volvo, the Audis, so the BMWs, and the tariff for them is at 15%. Well, so let me give you a backdrop. Pre Trump time, during Biden's administration, the tariffs were really like, we were looking at tariffs for cars at around 2% or thereabouts. Yeah, I'll have to confirm that it was really low. Yeah, I'm assuming it was 2.5% tariff on, yeah, 2.5% tariff on cars coming to the US. So at least the manufacturers from Germany could make a good profit, right? But once Trump came in, somewhere in April, he said, this year, he said that no, we are imposing a further 25% on all automobile cars coming into the US. And they're like, what? So already that hit the German economy hard, because they lost in the tune of billions of dollars, right? But it was just temporal until now, this deal. So they were expecting a lower amount, because 15% still tariffs on automobile coming from, let's say, Germany, it's still high. And what is likely to happen is that people will lose their jobs, because the production levels will go down, because of the high prices now of the cars going into the US market, or else the German companies will ship their manufacturing. Okay, they'll start manufacturing units in the US. That means that probably more people, I mean, people, they'll shut down their factories in Germany. Some of their factories, of course, US is not their only consumer, right? But if it's a huge segment of the market, which it is, they'll probably shut a few of their plants and maybe set up a factory in the US, just to reduce that cost of production, right? Meaning that there'll be job loss for the people. That's probable. Yeah. What else? For other goods, like some agricultural goods, let's go to aeronautical sector. Yeah, so at least that one was fair. It was a 0 for 0 tariff. So any aeronautical parts coming from the US to the EU, or vice versa, there'll be no tariffs on them. And that's good, because, Boeing, my favorite airline, I mean, sorry, my favorite aircraft. Yeah, Boeing manufactures its goods, it's a US company, right? And then Airbus is a French company. So it will be business as usual. There'll be no losses on either side. For for um for other things like fertilizers, some generic drugs, um some agricultural produce, there'll be no taxation. I mean, there'll be like zero tariffs, so it will be good now for the EU, yeah, but not all of them. They'll be detailed better. Yeah, and for the US, now look at how it works. So the US is imposing a 15% tariff on cars and automobile parts coming to the US, and yet their automobiles going to the EU are being taxed like below 10%. I think they're being taxed. If they're, I don't even think they're being taxed. I think there'll be zero taxation. I mean, zero tariffs on the automobile coming from the US. So like companies like Tesla and stuff like that, they're still safe. But you can understand why the EU may feel a bit slighted, a bit slighted, because I mean you have a 15% tariff going cars going into the US, and cars coming from the US to the EU are enjoying like between 0 to 2.5% tariffs. That is very America fast, America protectionist policies. Um, yeah, so that's how it looks like. So it's a big win for US manufacturers. For consumers, it's neither here nor there, because they'll still probably feel the impact of the tariffs coming to them, you know. For the manufacturing companies in the US, it's a win, but also some of the parts they get them from China, from Europe, from wherever, like maybe steel, copper, aluminium. So if the tariffs are high, then also the goods will be higher, even if it's made in the USA. Yeah. Yeah, so that's basically what's up with the trade union EU US deal. Oh, what does that mean for Africa? So we have the AGOA agreement that was ratified in the year 2000, and it was to run for 25 years, coming to an end in the month of September. We want to see we want to see how that will be brokered. As we can see, the EU US deal, the US took, there's a saying that says, I'll have to remember that saying, the winner takes it all, right? So in this case, the winner takes it all. The US took it all. For the AGOA agreement to continue, I'm sure there'll be a few changes that will still protect the US economy. So again, I foresee a similar situation where the winner takes it all, and that's why African countries have to really expand their markets and see who else in the world that they can trade with, so that they're not over reliant on just one economic trade partner. And that's all for today. Hope you've learned something. If you want to comment, share, like, you can just do that in the comment section or press the like button, and we will see you next time. Yeah.